Welcome back to the Locker Room podcast number 16, with your new host today, me, Joe Ciaran. So it's my first time doing the podcast, so go easy on me. We've got three bits of good news today. First of all, Ross Bennett has been kicked off the show, which is good. I think he's been doing it there for the last 5 or 6 weeks, which means we can focus on the GAA again. Only joking, Ross. The second bit of good news is we've got the return of host today, our CEO, the CEO of Dealey Sports Science, none other than Ciaran Dealey, fresh from paternity leave, Ciaran, and gardening leave as well. So,
thanks, Joe. I spent all my time out in the garden anyway. And if you hear a screaming baby in the background, lads, you know it's little Caden, so it's not much I can do about it in this room.
Great to have you back here. And most importantly, a guest today who we've been trying to get on, Ciaran, for the last while. We've been lucky enough to get him on today. One of the great inter-county managers, football managers of the modern era, Turlough O Brien. Very welcome, Turlough.
Thanks very much, lads. Nice to join you. I don't know where you come up with that one. One of the great managers of the modern era. Butter me up.
Exactly.
Hand over and fit things on the podcast. Just before we go into the questioning with Turlough, just a quick word from our sponsors, Ripped. That's www.R_Y_P_T.app. It's a platform that connects coaches with their clients and athletes. It helps you create individualized workouts. It delivers them to an app where your clients and athletes can view their workouts and have the support of exercise technique videos. They can record your workout, training load, and well-being data so that coaches can monitor their progress and optimize performance. It's also a great tool for strength and conditioning coaches involved with teams or working with individual clients. We'll also be using it to run the DSH online coaching, which we've launched recently. We've also a special offer to our listeners, so if you want to head over to the DSS website, you'll see a link to sign in, and the great news is you can get a 2-month free trial of the platform. So thanks very much to our sponsors, Ripped. Okay, so just moving on, Turlough, just to introduce you there, you've had 6 years as Carlow manager. Some of those highlights when you took over in 2014, you had a famous win over Kildare to reach the Leinster semi-final. You were able to live with, for 60 minutes, you were able to live with perhaps one of the greatest teams that have ever played Gaelic football, Dublin in 2017. That was even with 14 men. And probably your greatest achievement was when you won promotion for the first time in 33 years, 2018, for Carlow. Welcome on the show, Turlough.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, with a few great years, a few fabulous highlights there that you mentioned, and a few low points too. But it was a great time to be involved in football in Carlow, and it was a great feel-good factor about Carlow football, not just in the county but outside the Carlow as well. I think everybody kind of got behind us, and we relished it really. The players responded to that, and look, we went on a great journey, and coming from a county with the very, very low profile that we would have had, and the lack of success, and really, I suppose we came from a very, very poor base. Really, like we were bottom in Division 4 in 2014. Really bad year for us. Another really bad year for us, really, and football was at a very low point in Carlow. No one had much hope for the future, and the county chairman at the time was Michael Meany, and Michael appointed me, and I know he said at the time that if this didn't work, that Carlow were going to go back and play junior football. That's how low it was at the time, and it's hard to believe that now, but it was a true reflection of how things were going at the time, So yeah, we picked up from there, and it was slow. It didn't happen overnight. We made incremental progress. As I say, we were last in Division 4 there in 2014 with a horrendous scoring difference. We're getting well beaten in games, and we just didn't seem to know how to go about the job, But slowly but surely we addressed some of the issues, and I think we were mid-table the following year and maybe fourth of the year after that. So it was slowly coming together, but yeah, look, I suppose I always felt that we had good footballers, decent footballers in the county, and I based that on I suppose, been involved in club football, and I was manager of Éire Óg for a good number of years. And when we would go to play teams in other counties, invariably we beat them, you know, no matter what level we were at. Like, we would have played a lot of top teams. We always looked to play the best. We'd go to Dublin, play Kilmacud. We'd go to Kerry, play Austin Stacks, we'd play Nima Rangers. And, you know, I suppose, and one of the great learning things that I got at the time, and the players in the club got, but it opened up a whole new mindset for us. We had a training weekend in Loughry College in Tyrone with John Morrison. And we spent a whole day on the Saturday. Brilliant day. John was a huge influence on me, massive influence on me. One of the best coaches, I'd say, of all time, and one of the most open, generous, honest people you could meet. He shared everything he had with everybody, and he made everybody feel like they were the most important person in his life, quite honest with you. He used to ring me, or I'd ring him nearly every day, every second day at least, when I was managing Éire Óg, and into when I was managing Carlow as well. But we went to Loughry anyway, and we had a full day coaching, tactical training with John on the Saturday. Stayed in college that night, where lads were exhausted. And we had a session planned the next day for them, but they didn't know what it was. And we got in the cars and we headed over to Lavey, and Derry were in the All-Ireland quarter-final or semi-final at the time, and the Éire Óg club team played Derry in the practice game. And that was a huge learning opportunity, and opportunity for, you know, for seeing just how good it could be. Derry were trying with their game plans. We were trying to counteract them. And it was a massive learning occasion for me on the field, like with the top Derry players at the time. And we held them very well, actually, for a lot of that game. You know, we'd only 16 players by the time we were finished up on Saturday. The lads were exhausted. And so that gave us, I suppose, as a club, great belief in ourselves. And it certainly reinforced for me the fact that, you know, the footballers in Carlow are as good as, you know, what's in other counties. And we just need to get ourselves organised. We need to prepare properly. We need to take it seriously, which we hadn't really done at inter-county level for a long time. And that was kind of the start of it. But as I said to you, I really felt that the footballers were here. And we had a very good minor team there that reached the Leinster final. A lot of those guys were still involved with the county senior setup, and they were very, very loyal. And through all the bad days, they stuck with it. You know, that was a really, really important part of it as well. That these guys, you know, you'd often see county players dropping off. Things aren't right. There's disharmony in the camp. County board are seen to be conservative or negative and not behind the team, and the results are going against you. People are in your ear telling you, why would you bother waste your time going in there? Would you not stay with the club and have a chance of winning something? All this type of arguments going on in the background. But those guys stuck with it, you know. So I suppose, as I say, we made incremental improvement year on year there, and slowly but surely, I suppose, the belief came, you know. And we got to a certain point. I suppose I would have been doing the coaching and managing at the same time, and it became too much, really, you know. We'd reached a certain point maybe where we had made some progress, and we needed to change it up then a little bit, you know. And I had got friendly with Stevie Poacher then through. It's actually funny because Stephen and John were contributors to Gaelic Life, and they're on opposite pages. And I used to buy it online every week, and I always read that. It's great paper. It's great GA paper for anybody involved in the game. Gaelic Life is a fantastic resource for everybody. And so the coaching columns were obviously looked forward to every week. And on one side, you had John a lot of the time working on the mental side of the game, and Stephen on the other side working on the session planning and game development, I suppose. And so he was running a coaching clinic anyway, enabled school funds for St. Columba's in Kilkeel. And I would have taken a trip up there a few years in a row there to see what he was doing, like, you know. And I was always taken by his personality, to be honest with you, because when it started out, it would have been mostly down clubs were involved at it. And you could see I suppose, the development in him as well, you know. He loved to rise the lads from the other clubs, and Kilcoo and Burren, whoever was there. And I liked that in him, you know. He was able to have the crack with the lads and get across his coaching points. And I was very impressed with him, to be honest with you. And I felt, I think it was 2016, or I said, if I don't get this fellow involved with us, he's going to get involved somewhere else. not going to get the opportunity. So this was the year we played Cavan in the qualifiers. Stephen came out. He took a couple of sessions before the Cavan game. We were playing. It was in Kingspan, Breffni Park, I remember, and we put up a decent performance. After a slow start, I think we were 1-1 to no score down after a few minutes. Everybody was saying this is going to be a whitewash. Cavan had beaten Armagh, I think, and drawn with Tyrone that year, I think, and lost the replay. And not a lot of household names on their team at the time, top class footballers. But we held our own, actually, and we had a goal to still out before half time. And there was nothing in it really for a long way through that game, So he had certainly struck a chord with the players when he came in, and I said after that, I'd like to get more involved in the following year, So that's kind of where it took off with Stephen, So
Turlough, it's interesting because obviously we were involved with London at the same time as we were involved with Carlow.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say, because in 2016, I suppose at the end of the season in 2016, Stevie Poacher came in with you.
Yeah.
And you lads beat us over in Ruislip at the beginning, the second game of which he scored 4 goals that day.
That's right. Yeah.
And I felt that, and that was the first time I met you, actually.
Yeah.
I remember feeling that, Carlow was a county that we could turn over. That we were thinking that, well, this is a team that we can beat. And even though we lost, I felt, well, over the next year, 2 years, whatever, this is a team that we can get to a win. And for London, a win is everything, as you know. But in 2017, and Joe will probably come on to it, when we got to win, I felt like, well, this is a different Carlow team now. This is a serious Carlow team, and you had your game plan. And right, we got over the line on the day, but I just felt there was something brewing there, Joe, wasn't there? It was like there was something brewing in Carlow, and there was something coming, wasn't there?
I think you could kind of see it that day. I think one of the things that we kind of picked up, Ciaran, as coaches, as maybe analysing, when we came to analyse Carlow teams, a lot of people might say they were defensive, but in fact they were very well organised at the back. That's one of the things that we picked up, and we kind of knew that every single player knew what their role was, and every single player knew what was happening, and that was kind of more your launch pad for attacks, rather than somebody simply saying they're just a defensive team.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And it's funny, Stephen wasn't with us, actually. I don't think he was with us that year in London. We scored those goals. Yeah. We scored 3 goals in the first half. I think it was 3-3 we scored in the first half. Yeah. And this looked very, very easy. Here we are in Ruislip. It was a bog at the time before it was done up, and it's fantastic now. But we were cruising, and I couldn't see us getting near it, but we just barely got over in the end. I remember that, yeah. And then the following year, we really, you tripped us up into the following year, really, with that win in Carlow,
it was just the second game of the league campaign.
That's right, yeah. But we were really, really positive about the league, that we were going to get promoted. We would have got promoted. You denied us promotion that year, quite honest with you. That was one of the low points, quite honest with you, lads. It really was. We couldn't see ourselves beaten that day. But the thing about London actually kind of mirrored us in a certain way. You could see London were very organised. London had a game plan. This was very obvious in the last few years, that London have been playing to a game plan. They're very, 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 very well organised, and were no pushover for anybody, And really, you probably should have pushed on that. Was that the year you were playing all the games away from home? Was it?
Yeah, exactly. First year, yeah. And it was the year when we had the chance against Leitrim in Championship, and we were winning, and they got 2 late goals to turn us over. And I remember I always felt afterwards, if we had got over that day, it might have been a different thing over the next couple of years. And it put us back a few years. But you were. I mean, to keep the focus on you guys, you had a brilliant year then in 2017, didn't you? From that London game.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. We were third in the league that year, and as I say, we would have been promoted, I reckon. If we beat you, I think we would have been promoted. Then we had played Wexford in the last game of the league, and we beat them well. Banty McEnany was at Wexford that year. I've been down to a good few club games in Wexford that time too, before the championship. And again, this is where I always had this belief in Carlow because I always felt Carlow football, club football was very good. The top 3 or 4 teams in Carlow were very good. I've been down to a good few games in Wexford and I saw the standard in the club. I thought it was very poor. And yet, it's a huge county, Wexford, and it's obviously a big dual county as well, but they can obviously get a county team out of it. But the last game of the league, anyway, they kind of changed their team around a good bit. We hammered them, to be honest with you, and obviously they were confident. We were playing them in the championship. They were going to do it again, but we went the floor with them in the championship as well, to be honest with you. They got a few consolation scores at the end of the game there to get close to us, take the bad look off the scoreboard. But we were on a bit of a roll then. We knew where we were going. We had perfected our game plan, and the perception was that we were just packing our defence. And it wasn't that at all. There was much more than that. We were actually one of the top goal scoring teams in the country, and through the league, we had one of the best scoring averages, I'd say, across the 4 divisions. But yeah, it was the basis for launching our attacks. I suppose we were a counter-attacking team, and we were very, very well organised. Stevie brought a lot of organisation that way to us, and managing games was a really big part of it, and obviously Dublin was the next outing in the championship, and sure the whole country had us written off, you had no hope. It was, why are you in the championship? You're just ruining football by contesting these games with the likes of Dublin, So we didn't see it that way, quite honest with you. We were, we weren't naive either. We knew if Dublin got a run on us, they could bury you. But we felt that if we could play our game and not allow Dublin to dictate how the game went, that we had some chance, And we used every trick in the book, really, to quite honest with you, to disrupt Dublin and to stop the game. And if you allow Dublin to play at their pace, they would run over you. But
you frustrated them that day, big time, Turlough. I think you were only 4 points down with maybe 15 minutes or so to go. And I think Brenton Murphy maybe got a red card.
Yeah,
at one stage, and you're able to live with them there for.
We did, yeah. And they never got a look at goal right through the game. There was no goal chance for Dublin that game. I think it was the only game that year they didn't score a goal. Certainly, it was one of the toughest games that I had that year. We didn't look out of our depth whatsoever. I think a lot of people were shocked and started to really take serious note of Carlow at that stage. There was some performance, and then of course we got a great belief out of it too. And we were heading for Ricelet then, of course, to play Elat's again.
Again.
Yeah, it's funny. Our paths crossed quite a bit, in
a lot. Yeah.
6 years, and it was always a tough task to go to Ricelet and win, especially championship. This is something we hadn't done before. We hadn't done a championship in London before, so that point of view was new for us. And you had a decent enough record in championship in Ricelet, and so it was always a banana skin. And but a win, once you get a win in the qualifiers, you do get huge momentum. We got that. We got over the line just about. 12
how important, Turlough, was it to keep kind of the players grounded? After that Dublin game, after that really good performance against Dublin, when you're coming over to play London next in the qualifiers, was it important just to make sure that the players didn't become a little bit arrogant? Was that difficult to achieve?
No, it wasn't really. I don't think we got lost run of ourselves, because as I said, we were actually quite confident in how we were set up, how we were playing before we played Dublin at all, and we felt we could give a good account of ourselves against Dublin. We really, really did going into the game, and that's the way it turned out. I suppose probably the best time to get Dublin would be in the first round, and they probably weren't back training that long. They probably would have been on an extended break. But no, there were the bunch of players we had were so easy to work with. There was no egos. Well, there was one or two maybe. But they were very grounded, and they were very clued in. The fact we had you guys next in the qualifier was a great opportunity for us. You can get a run at the qualifiers and suddenly you come in the last 8 in the country. So it was a great draw from that perspective. Here was a team that we could beat, and I'm sure they felt they could beat us as well, and that's how it turned out. So it's in the qualifiers, as I say, if you can get a good draw, it can make a huge difference to the team development, to your season. And you guys had won Mulligan too that year, and
Bugsy.
Yeah, and sure. It was a bit going to the dark one to the right for a championship game, like. And, you've done a great job on the stadium too, by the way. It's fantastic.
It certainly looks.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, the pitch and all is perfect.
Yeah. Joe, we can thank the chairman, our esteemed chairman, for putting that up personally, paying for it out of his own back pocket. Turlough, I often wondered how integral a character like Sean Murphy was, because here was like one of your best players who seemed to kind of really flourish in the system that you had in midfield, and like from what I could see was a brilliant character, a selfless character, would just get on with it and do the job, and like no ego at all. And to play the tactic that you had where you defend together, you attack together, and to have such a big motor and engine, you needed a kind of a leader like that.
Yeah, well, Sean was a unique individual now. Sean didn't follow any game plan. You couldn't give Sean that type of instruction, really, like, you let him play his own game to a large extent, He's a freak of nature, lovely fella, very, very quiet, modest guy, hard-working, coming from a farming background, and he worked really, really hard at home. It was true about him shearing sheep the morning of the Dublin game. He was really, he was just a man mountain, like, really. And his first love probably would have been the hurling at that stage when he came in with us.
Right.
Our hurlers were going very at the time, but I had him at under 21 level, and Tommy Wogan with me had him at under 21, and we had a very good relationship with Sean. Sean, as I say, was a very quiet fella, very innocent in many ways, a real country chap. We had a huge regard for him, and we could see, we often joked, Marcus Lawler here is one of the fastest Irishmen of all time, and he's my sister's nephew. We often joked about setting up a race between himself and Sean Murphy, who was the fastest man in Carlow. But he was a freak of nature, It was a question of, if Sean got the ball, make space, let Sean go with it, and I thought one of the most iconic moments all was that game against Dublin when he raced back. And I think he dispossessed Dean Rock, I think it was. It was a fantastic tackle, near arm tackle. And it was absolutely classic, But he's a fella that got a lot of hardship in games. Teams targeted him, He didn't get protected by the referees. And he got more and more frustrated as the years went on because it seemed to get worse, This is one of the annoying things about officialdom, you can see it in front of you happening and to do nothing about it,
he was the one that we feared most now. So when along with Broderick as the scorer, but like Brendan Murphy was a brilliant player, but he was a conventional player, whereas Sean Murphy, like, what do you do with a fella like that? I remember you tell our players that stay with him, there needs to be a second man, there needs to be a double marker, like you try and stop him before he builds up momentum in the first few minutes, but you're not telling him, like, you can't just say, lads, get in and hit him hard, because sure, he loves that, like he'll react well to that.
So no, he was unique, like, he had an engine on him, lads. He's just unbelievable. Even in training, he was very competitive in sprints and all that, and but he loved to put the ball under his arm and just go, and you could hop off him. But it made no difference to him.
He was a steam train. I think he got man of the match in that Dublin game as well. Just moving on there, Turlough, just to the Downs. I think Ciaran might want to discuss these with you. I think in 2019 you got relegated to Division 4, and there was that infamous match against Down, I think. Where there were suspensions given out to I think yourself, Stevie, and Brendy Murphy. That would have been one of the Downs, would it? The whole relegation as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, again, it's fine margins too. Like, we got to Division 3, something we're really looking forward to. We really felt got to Division 3, you could get to Division 2. There's not a huge difference between 3 and 4, really. We were quite confident we were going to do well. Start again, you know, you hate being negative and giving out referees and so on, like, but it's a huge impact in our year, like the performance of referees. Like the very first game against Westmeath, we got a draw in Mullingar, but we should have won the game. Last minute of the game, Sean Murphy, remember talking about, runs through the heart of the Westmeath defence and is pulled down to the ground from behind on nearly the 20-metre line. It's a gimme for Paul Broderick to win the game. No free, no black card. It beggars belief how these things can happen. It was one of the most blatant examples of a foul. We drew the game, so we're coming out and we're saying, look, okay, we'll take a draw in Mullingar. Like, but that point costs us the relegation, really. And the same repeated itself then. You know, we played awfully above in Tullamore when we were beaten by 4 or 5 points that day. But some of the decisions, the cards that we were getting that day, but Brendan Murphy got a card that day, lads. He was taken out of it, and he got a card for supposedly, even though he was the one playing the ball away, for barging into his opponent. Like, but he was taken out of it, like, and that happened with 5 or 6 lads in cards that day. We sitting off on yellow cards and black cards, and with the same referee again against Down. It's 2 games later, you know. I just don't know how these appointments are made, quite honest with you. His performance that day against Down, I thought, was shocking. Down were on the ropes at the end of the game. Were happy with a draw themselves. Instead, it was afterwards. And, you know, how he played on, you know, at 5 minutes of extra time, and then gave a free for a non-foul out in the midfield. Maybe he thought it wouldn't be hit over the bar, but it was popped over the bar to win the game, like, you know. Down went out at Dr. Cullen Park thinking they were promoted. It was the second last game in the league, and they were playing loud in the last game. And I would say they got ahead of themselves and lost to Loud in Newry afterwards, and they were denied promotion. But you know, we were we're absolutely furious. Obviously, furious what happened. You know, some of the suspensions were really, really outrageous. I put my hand up. I deserve to be suspended, no question of that. You know, but the suspension I got was absolutely disgraceful.
I think you got 20 weeks.
I got 20 weeks. I got 16 weeks originally.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan got suspended for asking him a question at the end of the game. That was all. There was nothing more to it than that. He got a hefty suspension. Stevie, likewise. I was the one most guilty. I was most guilty. I did lose control. Ran across the pitch, and I did berate the referee. Went down the tunnel, and I went into the referee's room, and I did give out the referee in the referee's room, but the referee's report said that I had kicked in the door, which was an absolutely slanderous statement, you know. There was a video camera outside the door that proved it didn't happen, and I appealed the suspension, and I got an extra 4 weeks. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works. We proved it was wrong. The whole disciplinary process is definitely an overhaul. You know, we went to the DRA. We won the first case before the DRA. And the extraordinary thing is that the chairperson of the hearings committee who we were appealing against, he completely disrespected DRA, stormed out of the meeting, and off he goes, and not a word about it. And he's upholding the disciplinary process. Yet we, in the heat of the moment in a match, lose our heads, lose our position in Division 3, and we get hammered with suspensions. Like, I don't know of any other team that got suspensions like that. I saw a lot worse happening. I saw a lot worse happening in televised games. We've heard it. We've heard the microphones picking up the audio in games, and because of the teams that were involved, nothing much seemed to happen, you know. So it does seem to be, you know, the lower ranked teams are made an example of, basically, you know. So
it's interesting because I saw a clip, you may have seen it, a clip of Frank Lampard and Jurgen Klopp there last week in one of the second last game when Liverpool won the Premier League, and Lampard, you can clearly hear him berating the fourth official and the assistant referee and also Klopp, and using very colourful language. And but in professional football, it's kind of accepted, and it's kind of accepted as people lose their cool in the heat of moment, and it's a game of football, and afterwards everybody shakes hands and says, you know, sorry about that, I didn't mean to go step over the line. And things like
look,
that.
There's a lot of merit in treating it like that, you know, because when you are in the heat of the moment and you are in the battle, like, and you put so much on you know, into this game and on the line, and it's been taken away from you, like, by very, very poor officiating. It's very hard to take it, you know, and you've no grounds for appeal, and nor do you really want grounds for appeal, like, but you do want it to be recognised, you know, look, I made a mistake here. Like, and the biggest frustration I find is when referees won't speak to you. They're the ones that we have a problem with. The referees who will tell you, you know, what happened, or will put you in your place even. You'll respect them for it, but these guys will just ignore you, just record you and report and know, because they go to the rule book and they quote the rule. They don't quote what you said or did. They quote the rule to make sure that you get the maximum suspension. That's not in the game.
It's interesting because I suppose we experienced something similar in Ruislip. We always felt that as a smaller team or weaker team, it was very easy to make decisions against those lower ranked teams. And especially we were based in London and everything like that. And we were probably on the end of a few dodgy decisions. Yeah. And I actually created clips from a few games and I sent them to Fergal McGill, who I know in Croke Park. And I said, well, look, respectfully, I'm asking your opinion, and I'm asking for the referee's opinion about, well, why was this given and why was that not given, and you know, these very important moments. And I think until we get to a kind of stage like that where you can, like you say, ask the official, well, why did that happen? You know, and they can see that you're hyped up, but that they can understand that, well, this is the heat of the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and then maybe you can learn from it then. If you know what I gave it for, you might be able to learn from it, but you can't figure out what was in their head when they did it, you know. But the whole process of appointing referees and the assessment of referees in particular is a big bone of contention for me, because I saw an assessment from the Offaly game that year. I got a suspension that year too against Offaly. Again, Offaly, we were in contention for promotion that year, and Offaly hit a free, and it must have been 3-4 yards wide. The linesman stood behind the free taker kicking a free. The umpire waved a flag. We went ballistic on the sideline, and the referee never questioned it. He never asked the linesman, never consulted with him. Obviously, it was a problem, but did nothing about it. And after the game, I ran onto the pitch after the game, I ran over to him and says, I pointed, I said, you never consulted the linesman, and I got a 1 suspension. You know, so it is just so hard to take it.
How did you feel, just moving on a little bit, like some of the media or some of the national media, there could have been, like, there was a running feud between Stevie Poacher and Colin Parkinson, it seemed like, and, you know, different characters. And in ways it's tricky because when you're outside the bubble, and like myself and Joe were outside the Carlow bubble, and you know, you could kind of sit back and kind of, you know, you could laugh about it and get a bit of entertainment. And Joe obviously knows Stevie, and we know him as well, and Colin Parkinson, and it was kind of funny. But for you, like, did you feel that it was a very Irish thing in that the media and everybody has built up Carlow and the Carlow Rising, only waiting in some ways to see the fall, you know, to see the promotion, but then, well, get back down to Division 4 now where you belong?
I wouldn't see it quite like that now. Most of the media were very, very fair. I would have no issue with 90% of the media. They were excellent, really, really good, impartial. I had no issue whatsoever. They reported what happened. We didn't have a leg to stand on. We were guilty of the crime, and we had to do the punishment. The punishment was a bit over the top, mind you, but No issue with that. But some of the people in the media now, you know, I mean, a lot of these podcasts, obviously not this one, of course, but a lot of these podcasts are sensational. And, you know, you have the few like Joe Brawley and Parkinson who are sensational, like, you know, and I don't think anybody takes too much heed of what they say most of the time. You know, they're controversial. And in ways, it's good that they are controversial because they do create talking points at time, and they do take alternative points of view, and they can be very articulate, the pair of them, to be honest with you, and they can do some really, really good stuff to give their due, you know. But Stevie and Parkinson didn't hit off. Of course, Stevie didn't hit off with Laois people in general anyway. Sorry, Laois people didn't hit off with Stevie, I suppose, maybe more true to the point, you know. Stevie, I suppose, comes across on the sideline as being this agitated nutcase on the sideline. Times I'm trying to keep him quiet, times he's trying to keep me quiet. And sometimes he gets involved maybe with spectators and he shouldn't get involved, and that kind of grated people. And Parkinson picked up on it, of course, because he's leashed to the backbone, and he relished in all of this, and of course the Carlow rivalry then as well. So he zoomed in on it, like, and really made a big issue out of it, you know. Look, it was controversial. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. No, I don't think there's any such thing as bad publicity, honest with you, you know. Carlow were, I suppose, really, for a team that were operating in Division 4, and 1 year in Division 3, we got an unbelievable amount of media coverage. Most was very positive. You know, you talk to Carlow Rising, like, but we embraced the media. I thought we treated the media very, very well ourselves. I think there's a thing in the G at the moment where managers have lost the run of themselves and they're denying access to players and to management teams. And I think there's an obligation on all of us to engage with the media because we're trying to promote the game. Yeah. Particularly in Carlow, we felt it was really important that we got the county behind us. We didn't get this type of publicity ever in the past, and we wanted to make sure that we maximise it, and we use it to promote the game in the county, really, like, and we promoted. I suppose we were looking at, from my perspective, we were looking at our self-image. We had a very, very poor self-image in Carlow. We were losers, basically. We didn't have it. Our expectations were very low, and your expectations are always fulfilled. And so we were trying to change that, and the media was a big part of that. So we embraced the media. We allowed them access to players. We told players to speak freely. Don't be stupid, to speak freely, say what you feel. And, you know, when you compare that to a lot of the top teams now, where all the media interviews are only sponsorship events, really, like, and you have a press conference, if you like, where all the news media get the same interview. I think that's a disaster for the GA, quite honest with you.
Yeah, it's terrible. We had a really interesting episode right back at the beginning with Michael Foley from the Sunday Times and Declan Bogue, freelance journalist, and it was very interesting to see from the media's point of view. And like they said exactly what you said, of that those player interviews are boring. Like there's nothing said. There's nothing in them. And from the outside, and we tried to do it also with London, it looked like Carlow were having fun. It looked like the players enjoyed themselves. And like, I remember a video of you having beers on the bus after being promoted to Division 3, and it looked like this is an enjoyable thing to be involved in a journey. Yeah,
well, it was, because, to be honest with you, we took a very relaxed attitude to discipline, and that we didn't have any rules, really, to be honest with you. I don't think players nowadays that are involved in the county scene need to have rules set for them. You know, they're putting so much into it. They're so into their fitness, their condition themselves. They know that they've got to be in top class condition to play the county football nowadays, and they're not going to mess around, because they're not going to get anywhere. They're going to show up. In fact, they're going to be humiliated if that happens, you know. So that day is gone, really. And we felt there was no need to have any rules. We felt it was important. They enjoyed it. We had great crack. Steve had a great personality too, you know, and he loved the crack with the players, and he'd be rising the whole time, you know. So there was always that banter going on between us all, you know, and very relaxed before games. We were really, really relaxed before games. No tension. I suppose our format would have been, you know, we'd train as normal Tuesdays and Thursdays, and pre-game Steve would do some video analysis before games. I'd have to say it's the best video analysis I've ever seen, quite honest with you. It was very, very apt. It was very short. It was to the point. So we're always very focused going into the game, but we're always in a very relaxed camp. We have a bit of grub and a bit of crack, and there was no chore about coming to training. You enjoyed yourself in training. There was no one roaring and shouting at you, unless it was in a good way. It was a very, very positive camp that way.
I think one of the things, Turlough, I think it seems from the outside, is that you kind of trust your players to do the right thing, by giving them that free rein with the media and, putting up things on social media and all and so forth. But just going back to that Colin Parkinson thing, I think sometimes he might have been critical of Stevie's coaching even. He might have always said he's a defensive coach, which couldn't be further from the truth. If you've ever watched Stevie taking a session, the sessions are unbelievable. Correct. And everyone will tell you that up in the north. And I think he might have said to Colin Parkinson, if you want to come and watch a training session, come and watch a training session. I think that's how open you guys were in terms of the media and so on. And just on Stevie as well, for 20 years ago, when I emailed Stevie to send me some, coaching drills or phases of play or whatever, Stevie's very, very happy to share his knowledge and share his information. And that was like 20 years ago. So Stevie's one of the best coaches in Ireland. And, as you said earlier in the podcast, you seen him at that session that he took, and you wanted to ask him because you knew another county would come in for him. Do you think that was one of the final pieces in the jigsaw?
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no question it was, yeah. Getting Steve on board was a huge factor. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and, I'm going to work closely with John Morrison, and I could see in Stevie a lot of the traits that John Morrison had in terms of how we thought about the game, and I was of the same opinion myself. All our sessions were games based. They were tactical. We did very little physical on the pitch. It was all with the ball. But Stevie was a phenomenal coach. Great personality, which is really important in a coach, that you can talk to people, relate to people. Because this really is a people business, if you like. We're all dealing with people all the time. And relationships are very important in it. You don't get on with everybody, but I think if you respect everybody, you get it back in spades. And Stevie's coaching was certainly, it's up there with anybody, I would say, but Parkinson did take this thing that we were very negative. He was right. He was having to go at Carlow really, and having to go at Stevie as well. And I think under Stevie's skin that he was doing this all right, But he probably shouldn't have reacted maybe at times, and he did. But look, it was all part of the game.
I think what happens as well is that the opposition fans and the opposition team and subs and stuff like that, they always want an enemy on the opposition. So like when I was playing with Wexford, everyone hated Matty Ford because Matty had bleach blonde hair. He was brilliant. He would gesture up to the crowd if he had to, or the man beside him. So Stevie, by interacting with the crowd and stuff like that at times,
the pantomime villain, that's
exactly,
what he was.
Exactly. I had a run-in with Stevie, all right, in Ruislip when he was chatting to the players, and I felt, well, look, don't be talking to the London lads, and that was one thing I felt. Because I'd say, well, don't, you look after your team.
To be fair, I don't think he ever really said anything to players that was, I don't think he did that was out of the ordinary.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, what do you think, Turlough? It's interesting because all that you say there about how to get that team together and the atmosphere and the environment, is it overplayed in the media, but also in people's minds about the importance of the manager and how much success and failure is down to the manager?
Look, I just laugh at this, to be honest with you. I think this failing in the media, actually. Our top sports journalists, I suppose, are looking across the water as well at the Premiership, and they see themselves as the equivalent of Sky or, the English newspapers. And the way the game has gone over there, it's very much focused on these managers that come in and big personalities and Mourinho and all these guys. And they're kind of treating the GA much the same way. And I just think that they're missing the point completely. Like, it isn't about the manager, really, quite honest with you. I mean, managers don't kick any ball, it's the players, really. Ultimately, it's about the players. And professional sports is very, I suppose, it's driven by money, and it's driven by, individuals. And GA is not like that. It is really much more grounded, I think. And I just think this building up, the manager is important. There's no question. He might set the tone, maybe, in the county. And but we have this tendency to demonize them and glorify them, at the same time in the media. Like, for instance, the root of all problems in the GA are the managers. Mm-hmm. The managers are responsible for the club versus county conflict. The managers are responsible for, the way the game has gone, destroying football. Football was probably never as good as it is now. You look back at the old videos, there is no comparison. Even the great Kerry and Dublin teams of the 70s wouldn't live with that Dublin team at the moment, or the Tyrone team. And and we demonize managers then with all these things, and it's nonsense, really. Likewise, the manager's responsible for all the success in the country, and it's not really. You're really just there to facilitate others. I suppose when I started with the county, it would have been a small crew, but suddenly you realised you needed more people, and there was probably 18 to 19 people in our backroom team very quickly. It's the small things that matter. Like, I mean, the kit man, the water man. If any of those guys are missing, we have a problem. Yeah. It's not the manager. This is the guy with the water. You need your water. You need your kit. You could say they're small jobs, but they're important jobs, and they do their job very, very well. And I always think of that story of JFK visiting Cape Canaveral before they went to the moon, and the first person he met was the cleaner in the hallway, and he says, "What do you do here?" He says, I'm helping to send a man to the moon," he said. That's what he said, because obviously cleanliness was a huge factor in the laboratories and so on and so on. And it's likewise with an intercounty setup. Everybody's a job to do, and if they're not doing their job, there's a piece of jigsaw missing. Yeah. The manager's only one of those pieces of the jigsaw as well. And I think we lose sight of that, As I said to you, we have a waterman there and a kitman. They're there 25 years, I think, with Carlow, through thick and thin. And, how do you put a value on people like that? Like, they don't get the recognition they deserve. All the focus is on the manager. And I found this difficult at times, to be honest with you, even though I kind of embraced it. People think you love the media. Don't particularly like it, but it's part of the job. That was the part of the manager's job, was to deal with the media. But I just think it's overplayed big time, Obviously, you are a big part of it, but it's not about the manager, really.
Well, I suppose you're steering the ship ultimately, aren't you? Like, you there are different decisions you have to make and all, but facilitating the players ultimately,
I think the biggest thing you're there for, to me, is the culture. In the team, you decide the kind of culture you want in the team, really, and that's the most important thing. And I suppose coaching styles and management styles are very important, and it's equally true to say that you will have success with an authoritarian type of manager, and with a manager who is all about the players. And like we say, the comparison I make would be John Wooden, the great basketball coach, would have been just a fantastic player-centered coach, and Vince Lombardi in American football, who would have been ruthless. Both very successful in two different sports, with two different styles. But in terms of football, that authoritarian style will only work in the short term. And you might have immediate success, but you won't have it long term, because players will not listen to that long term, especially nowadays. And I think your job is to facilitate and create a culture in a team that it's a healthy culture, that players feel that you understand the demands that are on the players. I found that, and actually, I suppose myself and Stevie would have had a few arguments over this. I would be very cognizant of the demands on players, particularly, say, young students travelling up and down for training, under pressure with exams, maybe part-time work, guys in jobs, maybe in shift work and so on. And at times you wouldn't have everybody in the field that you wanted in the field. But you have to put football in context in their lives. And I think the players really appreciated that because they were given that little bit of trust, that they weren't abusing it, but that you saw that they were more than a footballer. They were a person as well. Really. I think that's really important. And we had a very happy camp as a result, you know, and they're small things, I think, but they're huge things at the same time, because it is very demanding on your time nowadays to be involved in intercounty football. And there has to be leeway given the players, I think, at different times during the year. And it's different for everybody. And it's frustrating at times when you're trying to manage and coach when you don't have the numbers that you wanted to have to do a particular session, or a key player is missing. And look, you just got to trust your players, you know. And John Wooden always said, the coach's best friend is the bench. And you have the ultimate decision to make. You pick the team.
Yeah.
So what more power do you need?
Yeah, exactly.
I think in the past, I think you said, Turlough, that you'd rather be a coach than a manager. Absolutely. I know a manager's a kind of different ball game than being a coach. Yeah. In terms of manager, what do you think were your biggest challenges, or what are the biggest challenges being a manager of that Carlow team with kind of the limited resources and still being able to compete with the better teams that have more resources? What do you think the challenges were? Challenges,
I suppose, that's the biggest challenge I would have faced, and any manager coming to Carlow would have faced, would be their expectations were so low of ourselves. The self-belief was so low. That was the biggest challenge I would have had, I would say, was trying to change that, to get continuity, get players to commit long-term, that they weren't coming in for a year and dropping out, and coming in for a year and dropping out. And we achieved that to a large extent, that we got great continuity to the panel. That was really important. Obviously, the issues you had then would be resources are a huge problem for a county like Carlow. You know, I mean, there's club teams with better resources than we have. And having said that, you know, they're not everything. And you're coming from a sports science background, Ciaran. I have two lads who've done sports science degrees, and I have a chap who's a PE teacher. And it's not to be all and end all either, like, you know. And
no.
At the end of the day, it's about making do with what you have. For instance, we didn't have GPS. Yeah. I see club teams going up with them, and you know, it can be a great tool if you have the people who can use it properly, or it can be a waste of time and a distraction if you don't have that. So we kept it very simple, really. We worked with what the budget we had, I suppose. You know, I suppose, you know, there's a lot made of the time you put in as a county manager and a player, but equally, a county officer has equally got to put in the same amount of time, and for less, maybe less, I won't say glory, like, but you're not in the media eye like we are, but they have to do all the dirty work in the background. They've got to raise the money. Very different thing to do with a county like Carlow, because we don't have big backers up for the game, really. You know, a lot of counties are very fortunate. They've got really good support. We don't have that. So we're working off a much lower base than most counties. Plus, we're a genuine dual county, and county board treat both codes the same, and they should do that. We have no issue with that. Like, but I suppose the issues there then at the system is set up against us, to be honest with you. That's one of the big issues for us. Not just Carlow, anybody in the lower 16, I would say, the systems are set up against us. The competition structures they're favour the strongest. I mean, if you look at the structure of the championship, you see Cork and Kerry have you know, for years and years they've had a free pass to the quarterfinals. Yeah. Galway and Mayo, the same story. You know, so there's a lot of inequality in the system already, and you're fighting against that. They were the big challenges. I no issue getting players out, to be quite honest with you. We got a great level of commitment from players. There's very little in the way of falling out with players at any stage. Maybe one or two, maybe now and again, would have been disappointed, not getting runs and so on, but that's inevitable.
How important did you think it was being a Carlow man? And like, you're a very proud Carlow man. You cycle the back roads of Carlow, you know every historical monument. How important is that? And on the flip side, like, are there issues there with people going into different counties or go to multiple counties, or how do you feel about that?
And look, I've always said it doesn't matter where you're from if you're good enough to do the job. That's the most important thing. You can be from County Down, from County Carlow, but you've got to be good enough to do the job. That's the first thing. Yeah. I do feel, though, that in a county like Carlow, where we've had multiple outside managers who came in, got a few bob, left in a worse place than it was beforehand, that we did need to go back and start inside ourselves. We needed somebody who knew what was in the county, who knew the clubs, who could deal with the clubs, get players in from the clubs. Like we started on winter mornings with 95, 100 players out for a 7-a-side tournament in Fenn, our training centre. And we got great buy-in from the clubs, and that was really important. I got that, I think, because I was in Carlow, I was from Carlow. I was going to give everything I had to make this right. And I think that was very important at that time. Yeah. It's not necessarily the right decision all the time, but it was at that time that was very important. But I do think there are a lot of journeymen out there that are, I don't know, they're bluffers in many ways, to be honest with you, trying to get away with it. More power to them. But one of the challenges I would have been, as I say, I started out coaching and managing, and it was to realise you can't do it all, and you've got to delegate and trust people. And I was very fortunate, to say to you, that I had a good management team around me, great guys in the backroom team, like Tommy Wogan, Benji O'Brien, Damien Sheehan, Stephen, and recently Stephen O'Mara came in. It didn't last very long because of COVID, unfortunately for Stephen, and Darren Leonard and Simon Ray. They're all good lads, that have come in and were part of the whole thing, So the time commitment is a huge challenge for anybody going into the county management. And unfortunately, at this point in time, I'd say it only suits teachers or people who are retired, maybe, It's become too all engrossing, really,
Yeah, there's that figure going about the inter-county player on average, 31 hours a week? For county managers, you're kind of looking at 50, 60 hours a week. Is that true? And obviously as well.
No, sometimes I think managers exaggerate that too, right. Because it makes them feel more important and irreplaceable, really, But there is a lot of time. I suppose it's time in your head maybe more than
thinking about it.
We're thinking about it and wondering about the opposition and your own players. And maybe I would have spent a lot of time going to club games in other counties, particularly for a championship or new teams in the league. Like I spent a few Sundays up in Sligo, for instance, but they were playing club championship and going to look at teams down in Wexford and counties you wouldn't be familiar with, that you wouldn't know the players, and just getting a feel for it, and a feel for the county as well, I think was really important, Stuff like that eats up your time, and it's not part of your job spec, I suppose, really, but you do go the extra mile to do that, The media, I suppose, then again, too, was a big thing. Like I was coming from, I was unknown, really, I suppose, and suddenly, particularly because we played Dublin in 2017 there, and a huge media focus on you. Everybody wants a bit of your time, and I gave it willingly, to be honest, because I felt it was very important. We got massive publicity out of it, So we absolutely relished it, really, to be honest with you. It did a lot for Carlow, I think, for our self-image, that we were suddenly we were on the Sunday game, we were on Sky, we're the darlings of the media, So that was a very important part of it, and we at times it takes a lot of your time, and but look, it's just part of the job.
But what isn't the point about the media, and some analysts I'd see comments then would say that, well, why do you feel it's so important to be in the media or on the Sunday game or in the interviews? But like, it's obvious that it's not, nobody's doing it for that, obviously. It's you're and we had the same issue with London, and we took the same approach, actually, in that you're looking to promote the game. So like, if people are talking about Carlow Rising, well, bloody brilliant around the
That's what it's about. That's the way we approach it. This was about promoting the game in Carlow, and it's very good for the players as well, for self-confidence, self-belief.
Yeah,
we're suddenly playing football on television with Dublin and Tyrone and Monaghan and
And for kids to see that and everything.
It did have a huge impact, no question. I mean, players became instantly recognisable. The Carlow jersey was everywhere. That was unheard of beforehand. I'd say O'Neill's never sold 50 jerseys in a year up to then. And suddenly they're selling thousands of them, quite honest with you. So it did have a big impact locally, you know, and it did have a big impact outside of football as well, because people felt good about Carlow. I'm proud to be from Carlow. And suddenly began to realise, you know, we've an awful lot going for us in this county that we didn't realise we had, you know. So,
well, it's interesting, Turlough, because when I was back involved with Wexford, and that was in the noughties, let's say, Carlow were our near neighbours, and they were our whipping boys. They were our team that we used to play in the Burn Cup, try out new players, and that was preparation for us to go on and play Dublin, Meath, Kildare, Laois, etc. And it was kind of, it was an afterthought. And like, I remember even Paul Beelan was our manager in Wexford for a couple of years, and I got on very well with Paul. And we were up at the All-Stars event, the GPA All-Stars event, and he was at it. And he had just been announced as the manager of the Carlow team. And now I didn't get involved in it because I really like Paul personally. But some of the other lads were there, the Wexford lads, and they were slagging him about down in Carlow and, you know, what are you doing down there? And in division, I don't know, was it 2B or whatever?
2B.
Yeah, but I mean, my club, Horswood, the barometer for us was friendly games against Aerogue and Hanrahans, and like you were probably manager at that stage when we used to go up there. We used to play against you guys.
Well, certainly 2005 onwards,
Yeah, exactly. 2005, that would have been around that period. And we always felt, well, if we could perform against the likes of Aerogue, we have a great chance in the Wexford Championship. So the club scene was strong there, wasn't it? And
absolutely, it was. And this is the thing, like what you just said there about how Wexford players felt about playing Carlow. I knew that's how those counties around us felt about it. And I felt insulted by that, quite honest with you. Who do these guys think they are? Who do they think they are? What makes them so much better than us? They're only across the line of the map. And we played in club football, we kicked them off the park, usually. And this has to change, really. This has to change. And there was no respect for Carlow, really. There wasn't. And that seeped into ourselves, though, into our own mentality as well. And we started believing this. And this image, this self-expectation was fulfilled every time. We're useless. And we had to change it. Because I remember playing with Carlow, and we got on a bus to go to Limerick in the National Football League. We had only 14 players, and Tom Cullen was captain. And he said, no, we're not going to look for anybody. And we'll give a walkover. I remember Carlow going to London, and a player breaking his arm, a bouncer breaking his arm the night before a game, and one of the players being in a police cell that night. I remember players going to Donegal to play National Football League and stopping off, and I think it was Carrigan Shannon or Bundoran, and everybody, manager, everybody involved, partying all night, like. So it had become a bit of a joke, you know. And this, for anybody who's serious about the football, and I would be very serious about football, always was all my life. I felt this was humiliating for Carlow, really, and it had to stop, really, you know. And we, you know, really, I suppose, as much about getting self-respect as anything else, you know, that Wicklow, Wexford, Laois, Kildare, you know, that's, you know, there's no difference between us, really, like only in our own heads, you know. And so that was really the challenge for us, you know.
Just moving on there, Turlough, I know I'm very mindful of your time. You mentioned the championship structures there, about the kind of inequalities in the structure of the championship. And I know that you're an advocate for keeping it, but not having a tiered championship. I think maybe you could clarify more. But I know that Ciaran himself is for a tiered championship.
We're going to have a fight here, Joe.
We're going to be a difference.
I saw that one for Ciaran. I thought. You can have a British championship over beyond.
We can play against Scotland and Lancashire.
Warwickshire. I mean, a few championships.
So you think, Turlough, that the teams in Division 4 should get a bite at should get a go at Sam Maguire?
Absolutely, yeah. I do, yeah. I honestly believe this is not like hurling, lads. If you go across the country, in every county, there are footballers of inter-county standard. There are very, very good club teams in every county. In every county, there's very good club teams. And football is played to a very high level in most counties, very well organised in most counties. And unfortunately, we don't get the same resources as the top teams do. And instead of looking at how can we improve football in the weaker counties, we decide to segregate it and knock them down a perch and forget about them. And make no mistake, when we get to that stage where we have a tiered championship and we're cut off from playing the Dublins and Meads and Tyrones and everybody else, and we're back to 2 lines in the bottom of the paper on the Monday morning, we'll soon have a situation where players, why would I bother? Because you're going to put in the same effort to compete in that as you will in the All-Ireland series. Make no mistake about it. And everybody thinks, well, this will be great. There's a final in Croke Park for the winners, for the 2 top teams in the second tier. But the reality is that I would say that second tier would probably be dominated by the top 3 or 4 teams from the top of Division 3. And the likes of Carlow and London might never get to a tier 2 final even. And now you've got the worst of both worlds. You can't compete in the All-Ireland series and you're not going to win anything. And you're going to have nobody going to the games, no coverage. And we're going to end up with to proclaim this tier hurling has been a great success. I don't see it that way. Hurling is very uneven in the country. There is a big divide north and south of the Dublin Galway line and everybody else. And I think Ulster hurling has actually been badly affected by it. But I think the solution is, to me, and I think we've got a glimpse of it in the last few months here now, where the COVID has enforced the club scene on us. I think we have to make a really hard decision. First thing I think they should go back to the rule book and look at the front of the rule book and what is the GA all about? Because I think this is missed big time in Croke Park at the moment. What is GA all about? And I think we've lost sight of that. I think we've become very much corporate GA in our outlook, and that has to be reevaluated, I think. And we have to decide: are we a games-based, player-based organisation, or are we about the elite? We need to make that decision first and foremost, and put that back in front of the rule book, because as it is, we're not fulfilling what the GA was set up for, in my opinion. The way to solve it, in my opinion, is this, because we won't agree on championship structures at the minute, but you've got to put a time limit on the intercounty scene. You've got to decide it's going to be 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever it is. Mm. That is the window for intercounty football and intercounty hurling, and you can have whatever structure you want inside that 20 weeks, and that is it. After that, it's good night. It's club for the rest of the year. It has to be that way, I think.
Ciaran, you disagree. You'd rather have the tiered championship.
Well, look, we won't go into it too much, because look, we've different views. I suppose for Carlow, he had a great run and he played all those top teams. For London, we didn't, and that's why our minds are probably coloured by that, in that we were just scraping around at the very bottom looking for a win, and we were happy to play any games. But now it's probably coloured a little bit by the situation that we were in and everything like that. I suppose I'm more coming from working in professional soccer and stuff like that, where you've got your leagues and different levels and everything like that. But look, there's plenty.
There you go.
There's plenty of.
Described it for me. Thanks very much. We have that too. We call it National Football League, and the cup is the championship.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's many problems in the structures of the GA, in terms of, like in most other sports, it's the league is the main competition, and you get, like Turlough, you probably would agree, the game after game after game of the league, and you get beaten. It's brilliant. You're on to the next weekend, another game. It's a runaway train at the moment. The issue of Dublin and the migration to the urban area, like the GA needs a plan. That's for sure. Anyway.
Yeah. But look, they had a strategic plan. 2002 was a very good review. It was radical in many ways, and they didn't follow through on a lot of the stuff. Probably followed through on very little, really. But there are huge inequalities in the GAA, and the likes of Dublin and Cork and the bigger counties, Kerry, can raise money independently of gate receipts even. They had huge backers, huge support, and there's no attempt within the GAA, really, in my opinion, for an equalisation. If you go to American football, the bottom team is the first pick in the draft.
Yeah.
You go to the Premiership or the UEFA are trying to bring in this financial fair play. Didn't work very well maybe with Man City, but there's a recognition of it and there's a need for it to happen. And in an amateur organisation like ourselves, I think we have to take a very, very, strong view on what is happening here. That we have a runaway train in Dublin who are just, like Dublin are a Man City, Man United all together, all in one. And yet they're getting a lot of funding from the GAA that really, I suppose, established Dublin since 2002. That was the one thing they called a strategic review, was that Dublin needed support, and it was right, and they got it, and they've done a fantastic job with it. But the rest of the country now needs something, you know. So there is an equalisation needed there somewhere along the line.
Absolutely.
I think. Sorry, Joe. I think Turlough, as regards shortening the intercounty season, like I 100% agree with that, and it needs to be clearly defined. And the GA, in my mind, the GA has to cater for the grassroots, because we're a grassroots organisation, and also it needs to cater for that young fella or that young woman who wants to get to the top of their game and play in front of big crowds. And of course, it's going to bring in money. It's going to cost money, but it has to do both. And it's great that we're all like club people, number one, and that is true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think so. There are very few intercounty players that don't want to play with a club. Very, very few. And I think it's very wrong for any manager, you know, at the moment, and it has happened, to have their intercounty players training when they shouldn't be training. I think it's absolutely outrageous.
Terrible.
Outrageous. It's nearly a crime for that to happen. It should not happen. We're talking about both sides of our mouth. You know, we're either embracing, the regime that we have, and we support it fully, and we can't do this stuff behind closed doors and trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and try to get an advantage in everybody else. Yeah. But that's creeping into the GA, and it has to be stopped. But I really feel that if we could decide that there's only X amount of time available for the competition, and then leave the clubs then to have a fair bit of the year for themselves, then we can have a really good organisation. But go back to the structures. Like I think the league should be the most important competition. Yeah. But maybe we should look at trying to run the league and the championship in conjunction with each other in that condensed season, because as you know, we are training and with no games. If we could condense the season and have more games, I think we'd all be winners.
Well, Turlough, we're a training-based organisation. That's where we are. Like, how many times what's the ratio of training session versus games? It's crazy stuff.
It's crazy for everybody, and that's for Dublin and everybody.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah, everyone's doing it. You know, it's like, you know, if Dublin are doing it, then we have to do it. You know, this is kind of it's like an arms race. Yeah. It's the same with funding. It's like an arms race, and I think a lot of counties are in a position now at the moment where they cannot sustain this level of funding that they're putting into it, and there is going to be a problem here for somebody. You know, they will not be able to sustain it, and rather than everybody try to reach the standard of Dublin, I now think that we need to take a step back and need to bring it back a little bit, quite honest with you. That's why I think we need to restrict the length of the season, and we need to maybe return to a knockout competition as well, because giving Dublin and these teams a second bite of the cherry is really...
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now, as you said at the beginning there, Turlough, I think now we've got the opportunity to kind of do that with what's happened with COVID-19. And I think because the season is condensed now, we can give it a trial and see how it goes.
Turlough, the CPA have been in the news a lot recently, just with before COVID and the championship structure for the clubs and everything like that. What are your thoughts about the CPA in general, just as an organisation, and some of the work they've done?
Well, the first thing I'd say, I think it's an indictment of the GA that we have to have an external GPA and an external CPA to look after our inter-county players and our club players. I think that's a big failing in the GA that had to happen. So that's the first point to make. The CPA, to me, I think they missed the emphasis. I think they shouldn't have gone to be the Club Players Association. I really felt it should have become the Gaelic Clubs Association, because I feel that while club players might be supporting what they're saying, and they do, but there would be maybe a lot of distrust maybe among club officials, and that they kind of feel left out of this. And I really feel like it's the clubs, it was a club association maybe it was needed, because I don't think clubs have really got a voice at the top. I don't think Congress fulfills that role for them. And I think they missed the trick by doing that. I think they should have evolved into a Gaelic Clubs Association. But their point that they're needed at the moment, because someone has got to speak for what's happening in relation to the fixture programme and what's happening for club players. We all know it's a joke that players are training from February or even January in some cases, and not playing championship football till, in some counties, until the counties go out of championship. So that's not right. It's not healthy, lads. It's not good for the GEA.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because they're going to find it hard to mobilise their members. It's a lot easier for the GPA to do it because they have smaller numbers and they're more integrated into the system and the setup, whereas the CPA is very loose, isn't it?
Well, it is, yeah, and it's not funded. The GPA is funded significantly by the GA, which is a big bone of contention for a lot of people. They're doing a lot of good work for well-being for players and so on, and representing them, but at a huge financial cost to the GA, I would say, and there are question marks about that. Is it efficient? But again, they're doing an important job that had to be done, because when they were formed, players were very poorly treated by the official body. And they've addressed that to a large extent, maybe over-addressed maybe even at times. But I do think that the CPA are voicing a very important part of the association that hasn't got representation really, and it's very hard for clubs to get change through the structure that we have, to bring a motion to a county convention, into a provincial convention, and then on to Congress. And it's not working. That clearly is not working, and the setup around Congress is not healthy, in my opinion. I think that it's very difficult for counties and clubs to get change because of the way the voting structures are. You've got a huge representation from overseas who have, I think, far too much of a say in, not talking about London in particular or the UK, but across the world, have such an influence on decisions for the game here in Ireland. And I think it has skewed the decision-making process.
Yeah, it'll be interesting with the new president coming in, won't it? Like coming over from New York.
Yeah, it will. Yeah. It was a bit of a surprise. A bit of surprise, and obviously with COVID, it's been difficult for him, I would say.
True. Yeah.
So it will be interesting. He seems to be a good GA man. I didn't know anything about the man before he was elected. But look, we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Just finally, the future for yourself. I know you mentioned off air that you were up in County Down there doing a bit of cycling, and you've got a passion for cycling and so on. What are you going to do with all this kind of spare time?
I suppose, to be truthful, since I finished up, I haven't missed it at all. Of course, there was no football anyway, so it didn't really get the opportunity. But my initial thoughts were that, look, I'd have no interest in going back and doing anything. But I was watching a webinar last weekend, and then I watched Kilcoo and Brian sort of down league there on Saturday. It was Friday night, was it? And I was kind of getting itchy feet again now. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the webinar. Was great, and I wouldn't say I won't get back involved, but it'll be coaching rather than anything else. I wouldn't be interested really.
Would you go back? Would you go with another county, Turlough?
No, I have no interest. I have no interest whatsoever. No, it'll be in Carlow, I'd say at club level, really. That's all it'll be. I wouldn't imagine it'll be any more than that. But no, I value having my time back now, to be honest with you. It's only when you finish you realise what you're putting into it. And we are in a bubble in there. And I think maybe we're not making sacrifices, but we're making choices, but other people are making sacrifices.
Yeah.
Families are making sacrifices because of it. And I think we have to be very cognizant of that, of the demand we're putting on people. I think there's a lot of talk about well-being in the GA and all the rest of it, but the reality is we're on a treadmill, and not just county managers, like I said, board officials, club officials are putting massive time into GA, lads, and it's not appreciated, and I think we really have to look at what we're doing. We just can't keep, it's not normal in the natural world where things just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Things divide, and you have more natural growth, really, you know. And I don't think that's what we have at the moment. We're just getting this bigger thing, and it's going to explode in someone's face, you know. I think we need to cut back now. And but as I say, it's only when you're out and you realise what you're putting into it. And I've done a lot of things in the last few weeks now that I really enjoy doing. I love being on the bike. I love bike touring. I'm not into cycling. I'm not a cyclist that like
right. Yeah.
Competitive cycling. I just like bike touring, which is a different thing, I suppose. I like being on the Barra track, and I have a big interest in pilgrimage routes, and I have a lot of journeys I want to do. I want to do the Danube Way. I want to cycle to Jerusalem. I got as far as Rome. I got to get to Jerusalem. I want to do a few things like that. And at some stage, I hope to do that. But who knows?
Could be a bit dodgy in that part of the world, but never mind. Just to finish off there, Turlough, thanks very much for all your time. Myself and Ciaran try to get on the podcast. You know, we try to get you on for a very long time. Thanks very much for all the time. You've certainly left a legacy there, Carlow, and you've instilled belief and respect, you know, back in the county. And it is great to have you on today. I'm sure our listeners will find your words very helpful to them.
Thanks very much, lads. Nice to be on. It's nice to have a chat about it now that everything is finished, you know, and you can relax. And I didn't really appreciate what we had done until recently, because my brother, he did a little photo book for me there recently, and it was fantastic. He actually got he spoke to a few people, he got a few quotes. I put them into the book, and when you look back at, you know, the games we had and the memories we've had, like, it's been a phenomenal time really for Carlow football, and it was great to be part of it. I get embarrassed, to be honest with you, when people hold you responsible for it, because I don't see it that way, quite honest with you. I see a lot of our players and their backroom team equally as responsible for what happened, you know, maybe more so. So
it was great. It was a great time, and thanks for coming on the show. It was really interesting.
Okay.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so thanks to our listeners there for tuning into the podcast. Please head over to the DSS website for all the latest content that we've up. Obviously, content goes up all the time on a regular basis. And finally, I'd just like to thank our sponsor again, Ripped, and head over to the website and all the information will be there. Thanks for tuning in.